Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is Mr. Ensminger, one of your NHS advisors, along with Mrs. Dominic. This is the video to explain the NHS selection process. Now, first, you're watching this because you are in the NHS candidate Schoology group, which we've created. Congratulations, you're here because you have at least a 96% cumulative weighted GPA, which is the first requirement for being invited to start the NHS selection process. NHS, however, is not just good grade club, otherwise you'd all just get in, which you're not. And so this video explains the entire process, what you need to do. Now, after you watch the video, if you do have any questions, certainly feel free to reach out to Mrs. Dominic or I, and we will help you out, or just rewatch the video until you figure out what's going on. I'm going to do this from the perspective of you, the student, so I'm not using any PowerPoint, I'm not using any sort of files on my computer, I'm purely using what's available to you on Schoology. So, the Schoology course that you're in, the NHS eligible students, looks like this in the materials. Yours looks slightly different, but generally the same thing. In here is everything you're going to need. So under the materials, you have the NHS Constitution. If you're curious, you want to get more information about what NHS is all about, like from the National Constitution to policies and things like that, you're welcome to read that. Widely available. I'll get back to the academic integrity. I'll get back to the service hours. I'll talk about the service log, the quiz you need to take. The folders here, there is a multi-marking period process, and the process that you are in as a first marking period candidate would be this folder here. The one that says 2021-22 marking period 1 invitees. There were students who were still undergoing the process from last year, so you can ignore their folder. This is purely for you guys, first marking period, blue folder. So inside the blue folder, I'm going to begin with the NHS selection process information packet. This PDF explains the entire selection process. This is everything that I'm about to explain to you. I'm not going to read the entire packet to you. You're certainly more than capable of reading. That's probably why you're here. But this packet, let me just highlight the important things, what NHS is and how do you become a member. So first, let me throw out the caveat that Mrs. Dominic and I are only advisors. We do not get to choose. We do not get to say who is in or out of NHS. We are merely communicators, advisors, and gatherers of information. We get the information from you, the student. What clubs are you in? What are your grades? What's your discipline record? And then we present it to a panel of 5 teachers, the Faculty Advisor Committee. It's one from each major subject and then another teacher, like a floater teacher from a non-core subject. So from English, you can see here English, Mrs. Duty, Mrs. Rogalski from Math, Mrs. Shaw from Science, Mr. Mashinsky from Social Studies, Mr. Ainscough is our non-core subject teacher. So the committee of those 5 teachers ultimately decides, based off of your collected information, whether you are a member of NHS or not. Not one person can keep you out, whether somebody on the committee, whether it's one recommendation. There's not one single thing or person that can keep you out of NHS, just to be clear about that. You're going to see a date here. The date of submission for this first form is 3:20 p.m. on Friday, October 1st. So coming up, the beginning of next month. Before I get too deep into this, I want to be crystal clear about expectations. When we say something is due, that's when it's due. There's no late policy, there's no grace, there's no wiggle room, there's no, sorry, my computer didn't work that day. We give you this information weeks, if not months in advance of the deadlines, and you want to be a member of National Honor Society, and so that comes with higher expectations. If you turn these forms in late, and I mean even 1 second late, we do not accept it. So you are encouraged to turn everything in advance. There's no reason to wait until Friday, October 1st if you're getting it in September. Do it as soon as you have time, and then that way, it won't be like, oh, it's Friday, I'm excited to get out of school. Oops, I forgot NHS. Well, sorry. And that goes for all of the things you're going to be turning in throughout this process, which you'll see here in a little bit. So I just want to be clear before moving forward, as it says, we do not take late submissions for any reason, not for 1 hour, not for 1 minute, not for 1 second. 3:20 p.m., period. Okay, so again, I'm not going to read this entire thing to you. The first page here talks about the 4 tenets of NHS: scholarship, leadership, character, and service. We want all of our students to exemplify those ideals. And so you can see we've created a system of selection with recommendations and staff ratings and clubs. And so we gather that information, we turn it into as much of a numerical score as we possibly can. And so from that, you can see how these pie charts break down. That's where we get a score that we're looking for. The score is 80 points, 20 points for the 4 different tenets. And so we're looking for students that have over 70 of those 80 points. Now, if you get 72, does that guarantee you're in? No. If you only have 68, does that guarantee you're out? No. We're just looking for, that's a baseline. Once again, the committee gets the ultimate say, yes or no, based off of all of the information we've gathered. So as I said, you're welcome to read this at your leisure, and it'll explain more about how this works. So on to the third page. So I said there's no one thing or person that can keep you out of NHS, and it's sort of a lie because the person that could keep you out of NHS is you. You could turn in something late. That's going to keep you out of NHS. You might have something in your disciplinary file that when we see it, we say, not NHS material. We look at your disciplinary record all the way back to 9th grade year, and there's no rule that says if you do X, Y, or Z, then you can't get into NHS. We do take everything on a case-by-case basis, but what you have to realize is there's 100-some people already in NHS, and there's 100-some people, probably 200 close to at this point, who are becoming candidates for NHS. The vast majority of them have nothing in their discipline file. So when the committee sees that you have academic dishonesty from your 10th grade year, that stands out pretty poorly. When they see that you, left your lunch at your cafeteria table and got lunch detention as a 9th grader, that weighs pretty heavily. And so understand that while nothing in your discipline file is an automatic out, it will be a huge red flag. And many students don't get into NHS because of what's in their discipline file. Now, again, we don't go all the way back to middle school and elementary school. It's only for back to 9th grade. If there's anything in your disciplinary file, we will see it. And there's really not much you can do about it unless there's some sort of extenuating circumstance that you wanted to talk to your principal about. But that probably should have already been taken care of at the time that you were written up. While you are going through the selection process, because I said that it's a multi-marking period process, while you're going through the process, if you get written up, then that is automatic out. Okay, that is a huge red flag. Right now it's like you're walking on eggshells, show us your best behavior. If you get written up for any reason while you're undergoing the NHS candidacy process, sorry. So be on your best behavior. As I said, we do check your disciplinary records. We also check your grades from your cumulative weighted GPA. That has to be checked. We're looking for over 96% cumulative. If you do fall below 96 cumulative for a marking period grade, that's okay. If your cumulative falls below 96 during the process, again, that's an automatic out because we have to have you over 96. We do check your attendance. Remember, attendance with tardies, it can trigger detention. So please be aware, get to class on time, come back from lunch on time, get to school on time. And again, there's nothing you can really do about that other than just don't be late. For transfer students, Hopefully you're here for the right reason. We get a list from the administration about who's eligible for NHS. If you're a transfer student, you are eligible for NHS after you've been at CV for one full semester, so 2 marking periods. If you're transferring in and you were in NHS at your old school, you can get grandfathered in. But as far as if you're not in NHS, again, you have to be here for a full marking period. As I said, the timeline for selection, it's a multi-marking period process. It's a 3 marking period process for juniors. Juniors are beginning the marking period 1. By the end of marking period 3, if you have everything done and the committee says yes, that's when you will become a member of NHS during the 4th marking period of this year. For seniors, because there are some seniors watching this who are eligible for NHS, if you're a senior, it's a 2 marking period process because we want to have NHS on your mid-year transcript. And so when I get to some of the dates do follow, for the most part, at the end of each marking period, just so you can remember when things are due. Okay. This page 4, talks about community service. I'm going to, if you don't mind, come back to that in a moment. I'm going to go to the following page, which is page 5. Excuse me, page 5, as I said, one of the requirements for NHS is you have to be 96% or above cumulative, right? So all of you have that. Congratulations. The other requirement, which is a must, you can't be eligible, you can't start the process without this, you have to be involved in at least 2 school activities during this year. Now, to be clear, this year means this school year. So right now, it is the 1st marking period. If you are planning on being involved in, let's say, the musical in the spring, if you plan on doing track in the spring, those count as current. So somebody who does, let's say, cross country in the fall, track in the spring, that's 2 activities. Okay, it has to be at least 2 activities this year. The list of activities which are extracurricular from the handbook is listed on this page. At Cumberland Valley, it is impossible to be comprehensive and up to date with this list. Things come and go all the time. Things are added on, things are taken off, there's advisors, then there's not advisors. I would say if you think something counts, ask us if it's not on the list, because chances are, yes, it probably counts and we just don't have it updated yet. If you see something on the list and you don't know if it's running this year, try and track down the office, try to find the old advisor for the club. There's really nothing we as NHS advisors can do. We have the requirement that you have to be involved in at least 2 school activities. It's anything that is an academic, like Quiz Bowl, Brain Busters, service activities, Key Club, those count. Sports, CBI, all of those things count. Okay. Now, with the introduction of Nest, understand that if the club meets only during Nest, it's not extracurricular. Now, I'm recording this on September 8th. We don't still know yet what this is all going to look like. So it's difficult for me to be definitive with everything I say about Nest. I know some people are planning on having their club things during Nest. It's hard to say. So for now, we will give you the benefit of the doubt. If you believe something is going to meet after school, put it down. And if it ends up meeting during Nest, we'll handle that as the case comes. And also understand that we're only talking about current things. If you were involved in 2 activities last year, that's wonderful. They still have to be what you do during this year. Okay? So, 96% cumulative weighted, 2 school activities during this year. There are a couple of exceptions over here I want to highlight. For Thon, you can only use Thon as an activity if you're somebody who is involved in the running and the organization of Thon. Like you can't just say, I went to the Thon car wash to get my car cleaned. You can't just say, I went to Thon or I'm going to Thon. That's not doing Thon, that's participating in Thon. okay? Also, if you are in a service activity like Key Club, let's say, when I get to the service hours in a moment, um, understand that you can't use the same hours for them as you can us. Now, let's just be transparent. Is it something that me as an advisor of several hundred students can check every single person on whether they did that? No. But understand, if you're logging community service hours and you're cheating, what does that say about you inside if you're cheating at community service? Okay, like that's a you personality issue. That's not a me responsible for checking everybody. So just be aware of that for your conscience. Okay, so the other requirements, you have to perform at least 15 hours during your candidacy to be eligible for selection in NHS. 5 per marking period at least. Okay, now again, let me be a little bit mathematical here. We talked about due dates, and the hours are due at the end of every marking period. So 5 hours at the end of first, 5 hours at the end of second, 5 hours at the end of third, for a total of 15. As we said, you can turn things in advance and then not worry about it anymore. The clock on these hours started back in June when school ended. The moment your junior or sophomore year ended, that clock started. So if you did service in the summer, you can count that. I know many of you did. Now the reason I'm saying that is because when you start the NHS selection process, I'll show you a form where you're going to submit your log for your hours. If you turn in all 15 hours up front, then you're good for the whole time. You don't have to turn in anymore. And we would encourage you to do that if that applies to you, because then you won't ever miss a deadline if you already get it done. If you did 7 hours in the summer, log the 7 hours, you're good for the first marking period, and then you have 2 more for the second marking period. All you have to do is log 3 more for the second, and then at some point, 5 for the third. Again, the key is deadlines, doing things in advance. Do not procrastinate. Things happen. We've seen it over and over all the time throughout the years. So please, please, please get things done early. Now, as far as community service, you know the number, 15, 5 per marking period. One of the hardest things we found is what counts? What is community service? Mrs. Dominic and I always say it is something that it's like the test of the smell test. You know when you see it. Okay? Now, we do have some guidelines. And you can see on here, and again, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but by definition, community service hours are hours spent during the summer or school year doing work which directly or indirectly benefits people, animals, or the environment in our community for which you don't get paid. Okay, so number one, you can't be paid. You can't be paid for community service. It has to be benefiting the community. Like if you're saying, I'm going to do the concession stand for girls volleyball. You're volunteering. You're not volunteering for community service. Doing girls volleyball concession stand benefits the girls volleyball boosters, not the community at large. So, before you ask us, think in your mind, does this pass the smell test, basically? Other guidelines, and you can see down here, and again, I'm not going to read it to you, but here are some things that would not count. When you're fundraising, just donating money does not count. You can't say, I got an hour because I donated $25 to Thon. Okay, that doesn't count for time. It's not donating money, it's donating time. You can't do political campaign work. That's not community service. Anything done for friends and family. You can't say, I babysat my little sister. That's not community service. That benefits your parents, not so much the community. You can't say that I helped my neighbor with shoveling. Okay? Those are not benefiting the community. Those are just nice things. Okay? Going to a shelter and just playing with dogs doesn't count. And then like if you attend a religious service, if it's something that occurs during the course of the service naturally, that you can't count that either. So like if you're in the church choir during a church service, that does not count. It also can't be something that is done during school time, with some exceptions. And as we said earlier, if it's something that is for another club, that's fine, but you can't count the hours for both. Okay, like if Key Club requires you to do 10 hours and you do 12, you can use the 2 additional hours for us, but you can't do all 12. Okay? Again, this is the kind of thing where think about it, ask yourself, does this truly count as community service? And ultimately, if you're still not sure, reach out and ask us. Because if you log hours that don't count, uh, you might not get to the 15, and the only way you'll know that is, when we check in with you, we'll say, well, you didn't do enough hours this market period. And then you'll be dropped in the selection process. So, as I said, all this information is in the packet. I didn't read the whole thing to you. I just kind of highlighted it. You are welcome to read it yourself. Let me finish with the final page, and that would be the deadlines. So the deadlines, as I said, the first deadline is October 1st. The other deadlines are the end of each market period. So the first market period ends roughly Friday, November 5th. We'll talk about the recommendations in a moment. But your first 5 hours and your first recommendation is due November 5th. Your second recommendations, your club advisor and your current teacher, as well as your total of 10 service hours, are due at the end of second market period, January 25th. And then finally, 15 hours is due April 1st with your service recommendation. For seniors, notice that numbers are the same with the exception of, instead of having those final things due the third market period, they're due the end of second. Everything for you is due the end of second. Okay, so what do I still have to talk about? Well, let me go back to the folder. We just went over the information packet. Okay, I have a separate PDF for the timeline. This PDF here is a duplication of that final page, just in case like you want to print this out, hang it up on your refrigerator or something like that. That's up to you. This form right here is the form that you will go to fill out for starting the process. So let me just walk you through this. Last name, first name. Please do not put nicknames because we're looking for a match to what's in the school system. Okay. If you want to put your middle initial, you're welcome to, whether you're junior or senior. Current market period, again, for you guys, 1. And then right here is where you're going to put down your clubs. Again, you have to be in at least 2 school activities during this year. Now, as far as the points go, talking about that, scale that we have, when you put down what clubs you're in down here, put down, did you do it back to 10th grade? Did you do it back to 9th grade? Because the more you were in something, the more points you'll get. So like if you just started Spanish club this year just to get an NHS, you're going to get fewer points for doing that versus somebody who's been in Spanish club for all 3 years. Okay, so you're going to log your answer right here. This is just a screenshot of the page. Like, don't click on this, doesn't work. You got to put it right here. Then, throughout the process, you need to get 4 different adults to do recommendations for you. The 4 adults are a teacher you had in the past, whether that be 10th grade, 9th grade. Don't go back to middle school. Don't go back to elementary school. High school, past teacher recommendation. For current teacher, that's a teacher you have this year. Whatever club you put down, whatever sporting activity you put down, you need to have one of your coaches / club advisors do a recommendation for you. You pick all of these names. It's not at random. You pick whoever you believe is going to give you the best recommendation. Reach out to them first. Don't just drop it in their lap and say, hey, fill this out for me. Ask them. Find them and ask them. What to do after that, I will tell you in a moment. The other recommendation is a service teacher recommendation. you're going to put down the 4 adults. They should be teachers for the first 2. They might be other adults in the CV community for the other 2. They don't necessarily have to be adults. Now, a couple exceptions. The people that cannot do a recommendation for you. Myself, Mrs. Dominic. We can't do one. We're impartial. Same with the 5 teachers on the committee. You can't have Mr. Mishinsky, for example, fill out a recommendation for you. Because again, we're trying to be impartial. So it has to be somebody outside of that group of 7. Okay? Reach out and ask them first, then put it down. These other questions, you must answer yes. If you don't answer yes, we can't take you. NHS is a service organization. Do you agree to do our group service activity? Yes. When you're in NHS, you have to do 20 hours of community service, which is 5 per marking period for an entire year. Do you agree to do that? I would hope so, yes. Do you agree to come to meetings? Yes. Do you agree to keep your GPA up above 96? Yes. Do you agree that we're going to be checking your GPA, your discipline files, and do you understand, you and your parents, do you understand that? Because legally we have to ask you that question. And then finally, do you understand that this is a process? It's not a guarantee. It's not Good Grade Club. You need to show us you have the grades, but also do you have the character? Do you have leadership? Do you have the service? So you are going to check yes to all of those things, and then it'll generate a response to us, and you have begun the selection process. For all of these submissions, for your service logs, for your information form, it generates a receipt that it sends to your email. Keep that receipt, because if you think you submitted it, but then it turns out you didn't, and I didn't get it, that's the only proof that you did it on time. That's the only thing I will take as proof that something happened on my end of things. So with everything you do here, keep your response receipt. Okay? Now, the recommendations. How do you give the teacher the recommendations? Well, oops, wrong, wrong button. Down here, there is a Schoology page, links to send your recommenders. In an email, you are going to send them one of these links. Make sure you send them the correct one. After you've discussed it with them and they've agreed to do so, send these links to your recommenders. Tell them to keep their submission receipts and tell them to follow the deadlines. Once you give them the form via email, it is out of your hands. It's on them to get it turned into us on time. But that said, you must give it to them in advance of the deadline by at least 2 weeks. If you give it to them closer to the deadline than 2 weeks, that's on you. So with anything, don't give it to them the day before, don't give it to them the week before. They need at least 2 weeks. So if something's due November 5th or whatever the date was, make sure you give it to them by the middle of October. And once again, there is no reason to procrastinate. The only one you could hang back on a little bit, because it's not due till the end of second marking period, is the current teacher, because right now they probably don't know you very well. And once again, as I've said, make sure you pick somebody who's going to give you a good recommendation. Don't just pick randomly amongst your teachers. Pick somebody who knows you well and whom you believe will represent you fairly to us, because we do not know many of you. And this is the only way we have to know you. Okay, so there's the links for the recommendations. The only other thing then that 2 things I need to do then would be the service log. How do you log your hours? So right here I have a PDF, again, kind of separated. What counts for service hours? This is the document that's inside. So if you ever need a quick check, there it is. And then the log is another form right here, candidate service log, click that. It's very simple. Here are the dates. You come down here, your last name, your first name, what was the date of the activity, and how many hours did you do it for, and what did you do? Please use decimals. Like don't write out 1 hour and 30 minutes, use like 1.5, and then write out what you did. You don't have to put like an entire paragraph, just be descriptive but brief. Okay, and once again, keep your response receipts to those. You can submit as many of those logs as you want. You can do them hour by hour at a time. You can do them, put down the date and say, I did this, for 5 hours, whatever you need to do. This is the way you communicate with us. The final thing then, and this is new this year, we decided that after the last 18 months where there was a rampant increase in academic dishonesty, both for reasons of COVID, hybrid learning, and everything else. You didn't take tests or quizzes in front of teachers, you did electronically. We are going to make you have an academic integrity quiz. In order to be eligible for NHS, you must get a 10 out of 10 on this quiz. I'm going to publish it now, right in front of you. You must take this quiz in order to begin the selection process. So this quiz is part of the process. The academic integrity policy is linked right here. It's also in your handbook. This is a 10-question multiple choice true-false quiz on academic integrity and how does it pertain to NHS. Take that. You can take it as many times as you want until you get 100, but you must get 100 in order to be eligible for NHS. So, as a quick recap, you're here because you have a 96% cumulative weighted GPA. In order to be eligible, you must have 2 current school activities. You must do at least 15 hours of community service. Turn your things in advance of the dates. If you go past the dates, that's not good. Discipline file, we do check. It will cause some of you problems. It's a 3 marking period process. Do the recommendations to the 4 different staff members. Log your hours. Take the academic integrity quiz. Everybody, thank you for watching. We are past 30 minutes. Try to get under 30 minutes, but thanks for watching. If you have any questions, as I said, please reach out. This is Dominic and myself. Have a wonderful school year. We hope to work with you soon. Take care.